On the feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist, we recall the saint who Christ himself proclaimed greater than any man born of woman. Even in his mother's womb, St. John the Baptist was anointed, so filled with the Holy Spirit, that as Christ drew close in the womb of the Theotokos, St. John the Baptist leapt with joy. He recognized, even in his mother's womb, the closeness, the nearness of Christ. He recognized his Christ. A great saint, a miraculous conception in their old age, when all considered them barren. And then, when Herod attempted to kill the Christ and initiated the slaughter of the innocents, the Holy Family fled, of course, to Egypt, but St. John the Baptist's parents took him out into the desert. They too had to escape to protect their child. And the desert then becomes a theme in St. John the Baptist's life. He goes and he lives out in the desert. He separates himself off from the company of men so that he isn't tainted by worldliness. He isn't burdened by worldly concerns. When he sees evil, he confronts it. He pronounces it as evil because he doesn't have the fears of men of the world. He doesn't consider as anything worldly power. But St. John the Baptist, of course, left the desert. He left the desert for our sake, to proclaim the coming of the Christ. And then he meets Herod, and the Church Fathers remind us that in Herod and St. John the Baptist we have two images, one of great evil and one of great sanctity, of holiness. Herod, who pursued worldly pleasures, material gain, worldly power, and then his life comes to nothing. St. John the Baptist renounces all of this. He renounces it and pursues only God, and his rewards are hidden from the world, hidden in the depths of his heart, in his soul. The transitory, worldly pleasures of Herod are brief and they are gone. The joys of the heavenly kingdom that St. John the Baptist inherited are eternal. The Fathers ask us, look at ourselves, search our hearts. What is it we see there? Do we see the pleasure seeking of Herod? Or do we see the renunciation of St. John the Baptist, who sought only God? Saintliness, holiness, is almost something of a paradox, in that in one sense we can say it's the natural way of all Christianity. We are all called to be saints, to be holy. And yet, when we look at ourselves, we consider our lives, our hearts, compare ourselves with these great figures. We see how far we fall short. And yet, the Church celebrates the Feast of All Saints on the Sunday following Pentecost for a reason, to remind us that it is the Holy Spirit that makes saints. It is the sanctity of the indwelling of the Holy Spirit that produces saintliness, that empowers people, enables them to become saints. So we are called, all of us, to be saints. But we must ask ourselves, do I imitate the saints in my life? Not the specific ways that they lived. St. John the Baptist, as we said, went out into the desert. He ate locusts and wild honey. Few of us are called to do this. This is not what we are called to imitate. It isn't the specific circumstances of their lives, but the inward search, the longing for God, the willingness to be obedient, to trust in God, to have faith in God, hope in God. St. John Climacus says to us, for every man, God gives a path to Christ. Whatever the outward circumstances, that path is specific to us. There is a path where we are married, single, in the desert, in the world, wherever we find ourselves, whatever group of people we find ourselves living amongst. God gives us a path to Christ. It is up to us to imitate the saints.